This is RTV6 News at Noon, working for you.
I'd say that they need to get the bugs worked out.
Longer lines and fewer polling places. Those are two of the features of this year's primary election day in Indianapolis and in a number of counties across the state. Much more on Election Day coming up here on the News at Noon. But first, we want to check in with meteorologist Todd Clausen. Todd, if people are heading out to the polls this afternoon, it is going to be hot out there, and this is just the beginning of a pretty big warm-up this week.
Yeah, you know, if you are heading to the polls, obviously we've seen, Meredith, the lines are pretty long. Make sure you bring some water or maybe even an umbrella to kind of shade you from the sunshine. You don't need it for any rainfall, but these temperatures are warming quickly. Already warmer today than we were the entire day yesterday, and it's only the noon hour. 80 in Indianapolis as well as Martinsville, 80 in Greencastle, 83 in Muncie, a couple upper 70s out there, but everybody's going into the 80s here later on today. A live look in Bloomington, and the sun is shining there. Not a cloud in the sky currently in Bloomington or across much of central Indiana. That's why you're not going to find much shade out there or relief from the sunshine if you are heading out to wait in some of those lines at the polling places across the area. We expand out and you can see there's really not a whole lot going on. We'll have a sun-filled afternoon. The humidity is going to come up a little bit, not super oppressive here today, but also we're going to see a breeze kick in. So the wind will kind of cut the temperature a little bit as the gusts will be up to about 20 miles per hour, but we're still looking at highs in the upper 80s. Not out of the question, some locations here, Meredith, could climb up into the low 90s later on this afternoon. And as you mentioned earlier, this is just the start of a prolonged period of temperatures in the 80s. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a little bit.
Todd, thank you. Just in moments ago, the latest COVID-19 numbers from the state health department. The number of new deaths is up. 46 new deaths were reported today. That means Indiana has surpassed 2,000 COVID-19 deaths officially. 430 new cases were also reported. That pushes Indiana past the 35,000 mark. New this midday, almost 1 month after he was killed by a Metro police officer, the family of Dreasjon Reed is back in court. They want a judge to release the names of the officers involved in the shooting that's been a prominent part of recent police brutality protests in Indianapolis. In this court filing, attorneys for Reed's family say they want the name of the officer who killed Reed after a police chase on May 6th to be made public. They also want made public the name of the officer who was later punished for making a callous comment about Reed following the shooting. That comment was captured on Facebook Live video from Reed's phone. Just days after that shooting, Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears asked a judge to appoint a special prosecutor for this case. Our Rafael Sanchez asked Mears why we're still waiting for that to happen.
We filed about 36 hours after this case filed. We filed a motion for an independent prosecutor, which removes us from the case. At this particular point now, it's up for the judge to find a prosecutor to fill in that role as the independent prosecutor. I think it's important to note that a prosecutor has to be willing to accept that appointment. So, you know, I'm sure the judge is reaching out to numerous people across the state, but it's something that someone has to be willing to accept and take on this responsibility. And I would imagine that's probably some of the reason as to why there's a delay. There's no specific time frame in place in terms of the decision must be made by this date or under this time period.
Metro Police said that Reed opened fire first before he was killed by an officer. But in the new court filing, Reed's family accuses IMPD of smearing Reed's name. Their attorney denies that Reed fired shots at officers. It went from peaceful to chaotic within minutes. Next, the terrifying scene outside the White House and the questions being asked about the use of federal troops ahead of a presidential photo op. Todd.
And Meredith, it's been a beautiful stretch of weather with temperatures that were running actually a little bit below normal with highs in the 70s since Saturday. Well, that's all changing here today as the heat is back. We're climbing into the 80s already, and you see off to our west, temperatures are even warmer. That's heading our way for the coming days. We'll break it all down for you coming up in your Storm Team 6 forecast. You're watching the News at Noon right here on RTV6.
Greatest Seasons Ever premieres Monday on ABC.
Criticism continues to come in from Episcopal Church officials and others toward President Trump. It's because police and National Guard troops assaulted peaceful protesters outside the White House just minutes before Trump held a photo op at historic St. John's Church. ABC's Rena Roy tells us it happened minutes after the president called for a military show of force against protesters across the country. And we are unfortunately experiencing some technical difficulties. We will bring you that story in just a moment.
Right outside the White House Monday, thousands of peaceful protesters coming into conflict with U.S. Park Police and National Guard troops with a message for the president.
As a leader, your job isn't to be a president to half the country, it's to be a president to all of the country.
Things began peacefully, but quickly turned tense. Authorities suddenly and forcefully started clearing people out using tear gas, rubber bullets, batons, and flashbang grenades, even attacking this Australian news crew during a live report.
They're quite violent, and they do not care who they're targeting at the moment.
The violent confrontation provoked by government forces coming 25 minutes before a citywide curfew went into effect. Meanwhile, at the White House, as protesters kneeled or put their hands up, the president claiming to support peaceful demonstrations.
I am your president of law and order and an ally of all peaceful protesters.
President Trump has full authority in D.C., but not in the states. He urged governors to deploy the National Guard in their areas as well, or threatened to dispatch active duty military if they don't. A move only possible if he invoked a rarely used law, the Insurrection Act of 1807. And even then, it's unclear what that would entail. Moments after he addressed the nation, he walked through the cleared out streets with his entourage to nearby historic St. John's Episcopal Church for a photo op. Reverend Marianne Buddy of the Episcopal Diocese says she wasn't informed he would be visiting, saying he is welcome to pray there, but not use the church as a prop.
He is not entitled to use the spiritual symbolism of our sacred spaces and our sacred texts to promote or to justify a entirely different message.
That was ABC's Rena Roy reporting. Despite the option for mail-in voting, people flocked to the polls today to cast their ballot. And for some, it's because they never got their absentee ballot in the mail. Our Alyssa Donovan is live at Broad Ripple High School, one of only 22 voting locations in Marion County for this primary election. Alyssa, how are things going right now?
You know what, Meredith, it is very crowded. I'll tell you, just driving in here myself, it was hard to find a parking spot, but look at how many people are here to vote today. And as you said, there's 22 voting locations, and that number probably has to do with this crowd of people that you're seeing in front of you. Usually, Marion County has about 250 voting locations, so quite a few less. And of course, we know that a lot of people were doing that mail-in voting this year. You can see people are trying to maintain that social distance, standing about 6 feet apart. And there are some steps in place to ensure that people can be voting safe as possible. Voters are encouraged to wear a mask, and you can see a lot of people are doing that right now and practice that social distancing the best they can. Volunteers are using hand sanitizer and disinfectants as the touch screen voting machines. Often, when you vote, you'll also be giving a small finger coat so that you can use the touch screen without direct contact. We spoke with a few voters who were trying to avoid having to vote in person because of COVID-19, but they never received their mail-in ballots. Jeff League received his ballot in the mail and cast his vote, but his wife Jenny had to come and vote in person, so he came along.
Well, we both applied, and he got his, but I did not get mine. So I'm here to vote in line.
And Russell Hollis, who is the Marion County, he's with the Marion County Clerk's Office. He says that they acknowledge there were some kinks in the mail-in voting due to extremely high demand to vote by mail and the time constraints they were working with.
The high demand of voting by mail applications that we received was 20 times greater than what we received 4 years ago. And we essentially spent maybe a few weeks transitioning from mostly voting in person to mostly vote by mail. Other similarly sized municipalities take several months to make such a transition.
Indianapolis says they will be reconvening in the summer to improve the process for mail-in voting. Right now, they cannot say for sure if people will be allowed to do mail-in voting for the November election. Now, if you have not voted yet today and you still plan to do this in-person voting again, we are at Broad Ripple High School, and you can see the line is actually looping around before it goes inside the building. So quite a long line. Parking definitely seems to be an issue. I saw a lot of cars parked on the sides of the road. There's parking behind the high school as well. So if you are coming here, just be aware there's more parking behind the high school that people don't seem to know about. And if you are coming, be sure to put on your mask. That's what a lot of people are doing as they're standing in line right now. I am far enough away that it's okay. I wasn't wearing my mask during my live shot, but I'm putting it on because I'm going to go talk to some of these people who are in line about just how long they're waiting to cast their vote today. And again, this is going to be open throughout the day so you can come and cast your vote. Reporting live, Alyssa Donovan, RTV6.
Alyssa, thank you. A race that a lot of people are watching today is the primary for the 5th District congressional seat. The district covers parts of Marion, Hamilton, Madison, and Blackford counties. 5 Democrats and 15 Republicans are running to replace Republican Congresswoman Susan Brooks, who is not seeking re-election. 2 school districts also asking their taxpayers to provide them with more dollars. Washington Township and Beech Grove schools are both proposing an operating referenda and construction referendum. The projects will pay for things like teacher raises and building improvements. We'll have results from today's vote as soon as they come in here on RTV6 and at the IndyChannel.com. It is a moment that stands out among several days of demonstrations. Next, an hour-by-hour look at how a message of unity came together in the streets of Indy. We'll be right back.
Keller and Keller, right now.
For days, the focus was downtown Indianapolis. Protesters returned repeatedly, demanding an end to police brutality with peaceful demonstrations, only to be followed by some people causing damage and destruction. Last night, the focus shifted to the north side of the city outside the governor's residence. That's where protesters were headed when they squared off with police. Protests in the Circle City showing a dramatic change in pace on Monday. Between 6:30 and 7, protesters step by step began marching toward the governor's residence.
How this ends, we don't know. This has been a totally different script from what we saw on Friday.
At 8 o'clock, the mayor's curfew went into effect.
One of the, we'll designate him a leader here from this distance, is talking to another leader on the blue side, the police side.
Protesters and police still squaring off outside the governor's residence. Then a shift in the scene. After some moments of discussion, officers seen taking off their face shields and embracing protesters.
We have some people. We have police who hear us, who want the same justice and want the same peace that we do.
Before marching back toward downtown, locked in arms. And Todd, if people are heading out today to make their voices heard, whether it be through protesting or casting a ballot on this primary election day, they need to know it is going to be hot out there, so it's important to have water on hand. And earlier in the show, you suggested maybe an umbrella for some shade.
Yeah, you know, if you're in the direct sunlight, it's hot and you get dehydrated just even a little bit quicker. So if you don't have shade in the form of a tree wherever you're going to be, yeah, you can bring an umbrella as a sunshade, and that'll help to at least keep you a little cool and keep the direct sunlight off of you, because the heat has returned already into the 80s at this noon hour. Thankfully, the humidity, at least today, is still fairly low. That'll be changing now going forward in this forecast. And then tomorrow is when the storms are going to return. But look at all that hazy sunshine as you look live from downtown off towards the east on the Weather Now camera network, and we'll build in maybe a little bit of cloud cover here and there throughout the afternoon hours, but overall it's going to be a mostly sunny afternoon for us. 80 degrees in Indianapolis as well as Martinsville, Bloomington 81 currently, 83 is the current reading as you make your way into Muncie. Everybody today will be climbing up into the upper 80s for your afternoon highs. The satellite radar picture doesn't show much here locally. As we expand out to our west, there isn't really much out there either, although yesterday we did start to manufacture some clouds and a few isolated showers. TrueCast not picking up on much of that here throughout the day today, but it's not completely out of the question as this warmer air continues to work its way in. 90s the possibility to the north in Lafayette and over towards Terre Haute as well, about 86 to 87 degrees, the expected high temperature in Indianapolis. Now tomorrow it's just as warm, back into the upper 80s, close to 90 degrees. The difference is tomorrow the humidity returns as well, and we also bring in the chance of some thunderstorms flaring up during the afternoon hours. It should be a broken line of storms that'll flare up tomorrow after about 2-3 o'clock, and they move through pretty quick, so tomorrow's not a washout. You don't need to cancel any plans. Just know that there will be the potential for some storms as we head into a Wednesday evening, and then throughout the day on Thursday, depending where that front sets up, there'll be some showers and storms along that front on Thursday and again on Friday. Not all day rains, but the showers and storms could be a little more numerous Thursday and Friday. With the added rain and cloud cover, it's going to be a little bit cooler, mid-80s, but we get all the storms and most of the humidity out of here just in time for the weekend, which is great news, Meredith. Saturday and Sunday at this point looking really, really nice with mostly sunny skies, that lower humidity, as I mentioned, and high temperatures right around 84 degrees.
Todd, thank you. Some business owners throughout downtown are still cleaning up the damage caused by a few people after the largely peaceful protests from the past several days. Our Troy Washington spoke to one restaurant owner who is sad that he has to clean up, but says he knows why the protests are happening.
This graffiti can be replaced. These windows can be replaced, but the shop owner wants to make sure that the message isn't missed, even though his shop was caught in the mayhem.
I mean, I was angry at first, but I definitely understand the reason why this is happening.
Romeo Gerson owns Michael's Soul Kitchen on Ohio Street, right downtown. It's known for its live music and tasty comfort food. But as you can see, he's not open today as he expected to be come June 1st. That's because damage delayed the opening of these doors.
I was at home when I started receiving calls, and then by the time I got here, all our window was busted, and the damage was already happened.
He's not the only business owner who felt the wrath of protesters, saying they are desperate to see change.
When I checked my cameras, I saw more than 15 to 20 people. They were just breaking inside the store, and they're just tearing my life savings apart, you know. I tried to call 911, but they cannot do anything. Security of the mall cannot do anything about it. So I was just helplessly watching all that stuff, you know.
Fahad Malik owns a jewelry store inside of Circle Center Mall. He claims his kiosk and his store was hit hard over the weekend by protesters. It's a tough time for shop owners who were barely surviving the pandemic, only to be hit with this. But many shop owners are trying to stay positive.
People just coming in and wanting to help. Like right now we have a group of people that just showed up, and they are contractors, and they are offering to fix stuff for us for free.
The group that showed up to help here is called City Life, a local nonprofit. They're hoping to repair this damage and help get this business back on track so that they can open. Working for you downtown, I'm Troy Washington, RTV6.
Troy, thank you. When we come back, it is time for our Pet of the Week. We'll introduce you to Ginger. You won't want to miss this cute cat. We'll be right back.
100-850-5054.
It is Tuesday, and it's time for our Pet of the Week. Today, we want you to meet Ginger. Indy Humane says Ginger is a beautiful, sassy 7-year-old girl. She's quite the talker and loves to interact with people. Looks like she almost took this selfie of herself there. Ginger's foster parents say Ginger has a sweet and cute personality. Ginger would prefer to have you all to herself, so she would need a quiet home with no other animals and no young children. She's available with a $50 adoption fee. You can find out more about Ginger and set up an appointment to meet her at indyhumane.org. Let's check in with Todd for one final look at the weather.
All right, Meredith, it's going to be a warm one not only today, but for the next 7 days. 80s straight across the board, although today and tomorrow, probably the two warmest of the days. The humidity not bad today, and there's a bit of a breeze. The humidity comes back tomorrow, as does the chance of storms, and we deal with scattered storms Thursday and Friday while it remains warm over the course of the weekend. The humidity does come down once again, and you can see Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, again, plenty of sunshine. Meredith.
Todd, thank you, and thank you for making RTV6 your choice for news. We hope to see you you back here at 5. Have a great afternoon.